great win the other night. It was good for us, and the day yesterday to just sort of grow from it, watch a lot of video, learn from our mistakes against Northwestern and the good plays we made, and then move on to Wisconsin. So Wisconsin is playing the best basketball probably of anybody in this league right now, as good as anybody, and they are. It's it's the same thing. You go back to a press conference 5 years ago. They play great defense. They're great. They're really timely with their three-point shooting. You've got to score over strong bodies all the time. Their swing offenses are very patient, and we have our work cut out to them like we have every time. We've usually played them tough, but it hasn't always resulted in wins. I watched last year's Big Ten championship game, and we were up on a final two team, well into the second half. So we're going to have to play even better than that because we're in Madison, where it's always been tough for anybody to win, including us.
Jacob?
Wisconsin's a team that kind of started the season off slow down. They've won 9 of the last 10 or whatever it is. What are they doing, from what you've seen, and what are they doing differently now that they're playing so well?
Well, I think Coach Gard said it after his win at Iowa. They've matured as a team. There was a lot of, they had some not good seniors. They had great seniors last year. They had 2 first-round draft choices. They're one team that has had very little attrition over time. But losing Decker was the first attrition they've had other than Utah left 4 years ago. That's the only guys they've ever had leave their program for any reason. So they've had this stability. Yet that was probably the biggest transitional change they have ever had, was from last year to this year. And so everybody struggles through that. And so now they're playing, and they're playing together, and that's been the big difference. Their overall basketball maturity.
Anything, I guess, from what everyone's used to seeing Wisconsin over the years, so consistent and constant. Anything different under Gard? Not at all.
We see very little difference right now. They're probably running a few sets more often than they have in the past, but that's just watching the last 2 games now against us. It's the most consistent carryover you probably ever would see. It's really it's great. I admire them the way they've done it, the way they've continued. They're never like rebuilding that program. I count on the roster. They have 18 guys on their roster, and 6 or 7 are in a red shirt at some point during their years. Now, obviously, some of them aren't on scholarship, but there's still that idea of having a great scout team of guys that are older. They're just a veteran team. This is the youngest team, to answer the question from before, the youngest team that they've had with some freshmen actually playing. I had my files at Wisconsin, and I was going through them, and the time we beat them here, it was pretty good by like 19 points Treyberg's first year. And there's Kaminsky. He played 4 minutes in the game. And it's just, this is who they are.
With Hayes, I've seen like a number of different kind of defensive matchups on him, but it seems like height might give him the most trouble. How do you view that defensive matchup?
Well, we can't give him the height, that's
right,
for sure. But we have guarded him with our 5-man last year. So with Vito Brown now, they're really playing, like we play with 2 small forwards right now, and they're playing with 2 power forwards right now. So that we're going to get posted up. But the difference right now is that really now he can really shoot from 3 as well as post you up. They're doing more dribble post-ups where he'll get it at 15. We call it the organ music like the NBA. They just start grinding you down. There's no 5-second count. And they'll just dribble you into a foul. You go to foul line 7 or 8 times a game.
You made mention to the players before the last game about the NCAA tournament. They came out all tight. Is that something that you plan to keep emphasizing or kind of drop that?
I don't know if we came out tight. I mean, we didn't make some shots. Duncan missed 3 shots, you know what I mean? And they came out really strong. So, no, they know it. I don't think you have to emphasize it over. I think it was the time to emphasize this is an important game. But they, one of these, you got 2, Wisconsin will be a top 25 team probably come Monday. So beat a top 25 team on the road, it has huge implications.
And just you personally, how does your stress level go up and down when you're on that quote bubble?
My stress level never goes down. It is always up. I mean, seriously, the Elon games and the games early in the season, that's the way I live my life. And it's a really unfortunate part of my personality after, over 1,000 games, but that's who I am. So I don't even notice the difference in it, actually.
Mark?
You talked more after the game about Duncan and his struggles, but the flip side of that, I guess, is Aubrey. You talked about maybe even minutes could even out. What are the things that Aubrey is doing? Obviously, last game showed a lot, but the previous few games he hadn't shown that.
He's just his defense overall, he's picking up on some things defensively. His angles and his vision for the ball have been growing, but they weren't in a great state as a freshman, and he's growing in those areas. So that's one of the things, and Duncan had grown a little bit more in those areas, and then Duncan's skill level for seeing open people, right, it has really grown where Aubrey's is growing. So these are the things that for him to now, like that fast break where he got his body on somebody and went in and finessed that layup in, that might have been a month, 2 months ago. I'm going to go in and I'm going to dunk this thing as hard as I can, whether I make it or not. It'll be a highlight film. And so he's changed his mentality of trying to be really good before he becomes great. Two-hand dunks on rebounds as opposed to one-hand highlight films. Those are the areas that I think I want him to work on the most. The other will come. Glenn Robinson, very similar, very similar.
Aubrey, you're talking about.
Yes.
Is there something about him and his development where he's listening more and that something now that he wasn't last year?
Everybody's learning curves. You have children.
Right.
Everybody's different in how they learn. Some people can pick things up like that. I think he always listens. I think what he's like many of our players. Sometimes that it's not the same application that others would have. And so he's one of those guys, like we have half the team have different application levels where that pretty soon they sort of all of a sudden that light goes on. And that light's starting to go on in a lot of areas right now.
Zach?
I guess on that note, your team, the rebound rates on both ends have been up the last 4 games, and then it looks like Duncan and Aubrey are more comfortable getting after the ball. What have you seen in practice?
Well, yeah, we've been trying to emphasize that. I think we've done if you look at our defensive efficiency of the percentages that we've been getting defensively, it's really good. I think it's in the top part of the league. That we've changed our boxing out strategies this year a little bit differently, and just changed the footwork on it from something that we had used before, and that has really helped us. And so, yeah, the numbers are up, but I just don't want people to get offensive rebounds. That's the thing. Just don't let them get offensive rebounds, and that's been a key stat in these games.
Kelly?
How do you plan on defending Nigel Hayes? I know his game is kind of growing.
Yeah, well, but like before, I think people were really keen on him and Koenig, and they didn't have to worry as much about the other guys. Have had a great game at Syracuse, but I hadn't heard of him until that point. Now you watch these other guys, it is really hard to key on him. Some people at Illinois doubled him a lot when he got the ball, and it was in the game for a little bit. So we'll try, we'll have a bunch of things up our sleeve, see what we can do, but the big thing is you got to defend him at 3, and you got to keep him off the foul line, which we usually do a pretty good job of. And then make sure that he does not get offensive rebounds.
Yeah, and then any updates on Garris?
Yeah, I don't expect him to practice the next 2 days. So he is, and then he'll make the trip with us. But something could happen. When on the road, we see you every 2 out of every 5 days, or 2 out of every 7 days. Things could change quickly, but right now I don't expect him to practice the next 2 days.
Brendan?
Obviously, the conversation the next 2 weeks are going to be constant about the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
As head
It's
coach,
good to be in that. It's good to be. We weren't in that last year at this time.
and that said, when you are in that situation as a head coach, where do you kind of see your duty in terms of pitching your resume or lobbying for attention and types of things like that?
I mean, I have the same thing I've always had. I'm not doing any lobbying or doing anything. I am just basically to coach my team. The people on that committee are not listening to John Beilein or anybody else. They are in that
Right.
room, they do their research, they know what they're doing. That's my hope, that there's no influence in this at all. I got great respect for the people in that room, and they do their homework. And if we're selected, we deserve to be in there.
No stating the case.
Pardon me?
No stating the case?
No, I just look at, you got 30-some games, right, of how we perform, and then you got other teams. I don't know how other teams are performing. I'm not watching some of the other bubble teams and seeing if they think they're better than us, and the competition is just, there's too many intangibles involved in that.
You mentioned how Wisconsin's matured and that being the biggest difference of the improvement this year. How, in terms of, with a little hindsight now, how have you been happy with the level that your group has and things like that? Obviously, things have been different with injuries, but...
Yeah. I think we've grown in some areas. It's just like basketball IQ. It's never quick enough for us to be able to really see it all. But we have grown in some areas, both in basketball and our just our approach to each game, on and off the court, our approach to practice. I see great growth there and maturity in it. So it is and that's the coach's job, and that's their job. And when you do not have, we have really two seniors that yes, they're influential, but there's no way they can be as influential when they're not out there. And you got two juniors thrust into this role, and they're both trying to do their best and still now carry that team. That's hard to do as well. So I'm just glad that we're getting the Mohammeds and Duncans and Mark Donnells to give us, and Aubrey, giving us more on the court defensively and offensively, so the load isn't on leadership and score all the points and get all the stops, Zach and Darren.
Let's take a couple more with Michael and then Tony.
Hey, John, with Mark putting the back-to-back offensive games together, hasn't been able to do it consistently this year. He has a big game and then, I don't want to say a letdown game, but certainly not. How much of that is an opponent, Northwestern, going to the game plan saying we're going to take him out of it? How much of it is it just Mark still having to adjust to, okay, I scored 26, now I got to come back and do something the next game?
Yeah, I think it has more to do with how the opponent plays us. What are they going to do in our action? Him hitting those threes the other day, there's no way, if he hadn't hit those threes, he would have got open threes in this last game. And we ran two or three actions for him. There was no way he was going to be open. There was the same play we ran against Maryland, but we hadn't done that all year. Now people adjust. So there can be that. There could be who is he playing against? What is their help side coverage in a pick and roll? Are they staying in and plugging on Mark, or are they just saying it's a 2-on-2 game, you finish over these guys? Wisconsin will make it a 2-on-2 game. They will not give any help off any of the wings. So he's got to be able to be in position where you make tough catches, finish, and likewise shoot little mid-range jump shots. He's got a lot of areas that he can excel in, and he's been doing that more and more in both practice and games.
We'll close with Tony.
If you would have, take you back before the season, if you would have known that Spike and Karis were going to be out for extended periods, would you be pretty satisfied to be where you are right now? Chance to make the tournament?
Yeah, if I'd known this, we probably would. We let Sean Lonergan is a walk-on. He's a pretty good player, and I probably would have burned that he wanted the red shirt and get stronger. If I'd known this, we probably would have had him out there and just vying for some time as an off guard, because I think he could play that for us. Overall, I mean, there's not too many teams in the league, and this is a credit to these kids. They could lose two guys like that and be where be on the bubble right now. And so it is important that our kids understand that the team is what's most important. Regardless, when you lose people, you can really still have success. Whether it's foul trouble, whether it's foul out, whether it's injury, you can still have success.
And obviously, you said Karis wasn't going to practice the next 2 days. But if it comes to a point where he says he's good to go, how difficult is the decision that going to be for you, given that there's not much room for experimentation or margin for error in these last 2 games?
Well, we're on spring break next week, and I think that gets to the point where you can experiment, during that week if he's able to go, and if he's not, then you just got to move on and just say there's a point in that season where it's not fair to him or the kids that okay, he's back. You know, it's just, there's some point, I don't know what it is, I want to give him every benefit of the doubt. If he wants to play, right, he's gonna get to play. But I want to give him every benefit of the doubt as long as I can. But I also can't have to make a judgment in some type that doesn't hurt the rest of the team.
Okay. Thank you,
All right,
Coach.
thank you.
Sorry?
Zach and Darrell.
Nobody else is requests.
He always greets them as if he doesn't see them every day. What? He always greets them as if he doesn't see them every day. Same thing. What are you guys doing here?